Hi, welcome to Craycraft Creative. This is my YouTube channel where I share my art, the process of my art, bits of my life, and most importantly, my love for Christ. I'm really hoping to get to know some of you better, so leave a comment, like, subscribe, whatever you feel like doing. This is the first video in a series that I'm doing with Favored and Flourishing Podcast, who happens to be my sister. So I'm promoting her. This is the first week of a Bible study that she is publishing. I'll put a link down below for you to check it out. We both got together to do it, and I am painting an illustration for each week to go along with the Bible study. So these videos are going to show the process of the illustration and also just share some thoughts and recap what we learned in the study for that week. The video will drop on the last day of each week of the study, so on Saturday, where each week of the study gets published on Monday. Okay, so there's some information about these studies. Let's go ahead and jump right in to the first week's video. So we're talking about love. What is love? It's a word we use every single day. I say things like, I love your shirt, or my husband says things like, I love my team. We might say, I love you to our parents, or friends, or siblings. Love has been the focus of songs and literature, and a dozen movies a year at least. We know what love is. So when we open our Bibles and read that we are to love, we should know exactly what that means. But do we? That is the question that we are wanting to take a look at in this study. So let's look at what Webster says about love. We see the definition of love as a strong affection for another, from kinship or personal ties. It later defines love as unselfish, loyal, benevolent, and having concern for the good of another. These are all great things. But how does God define love? Well, one of the most used words for love in the New Testament is the Greek word agape. It describes a selfless love, which is the love we can see portrayed through Christ. It's a love based on will and action, not emotion, which is usually how we define love, especially in the Western world. In this case, I think we're going to find that it's God's will more often than it's our will. So let's look over at John 3. Here we see Jesus explaining to Nicodemus, a Pharisee, about his kingdom. In verse 16 he says, "For God loved the world in this way. He gave his one and only Son, so that everyone who believes in him will not perish, but have eternal life." Maybe you've heard this verse. It's very popular. But let's look at how he loves. It's selfless. It's more than selfless, it's self-sacrificing. And to a people, a whole world who deserved anything less. I definitely deserve less. Now let's look at Matthew 5:43 through 48. It instructs followers of Christ to show love toward our enemies, to love them as Christ loved us, which we just read was a self-sacrificial, willing to die for you love, a selfless agape love. Holy moly mac and cheesus, we are called to love like Jesus, and it doesn't look like it's going to be easy. So, how do we do this? How do we love like Christ? That's a question I hope to answer in this study that I'm doing with Favored and Flourishing. We long to be able to love like Jesus. I think it's really important, especially in some of the trials and tribulations that we are facing in our world today. Maybe you want to love like Jesus. I really hope so. In these future videos, we'll take a look at examples that Jesus showed. His entire life is a testimony of love. But for now, I'm going to read 1 Corinthians 13 to you. Okay, here we go. 1 Corinthians 13. If I speak human or angelic tongues, but do not have love, I am a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have all faith so that I can move mountains, but do not have love, I am nothing. And if I give away all my possessions, and if I give over my body in order to boast, but do not have love, I gain nothing. Love is patient. Love is kind. Love does not envy. It is not boastful, is not arrogant, is not rude, is not self-seeking, is not irritable, and does not keep a record of wrongs. Love finds no joy in unrighteousness, but rejoices in the truth. It bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never ends. But as for prophecies, they will come to an end. As for tongues, they will cease. As for knowledge, it will come to an end. For we know in part, and we prophesy in part. But when the perfect comes, the partial will come to an end. When I was a child, I spoke like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I put aside childish things. For now we see only a reflection, as in a mirror, but then face to face. Now I know in part, but then I will know fully as I am fully known. Now these three things remain: faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love.